Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm talking today about the full moon in Aries that's coming in between two very powerful celebrations, Indian celebrations, falling in between the Navratri or the Divine Mother celebration and Diwali or the Return of the Light celebration. This is a very important full moon. In addition, we have planets that had been retrograde. We had a lot of retrogrades going on. They are now direct. Mercury's forward, Jupiter's forward, Saturn is forward. So we're going to be hitting on those things and a few other things as well. You see, I have the screenshot here of the chart, and I also wanted to let people know, as you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen there is a free web class that is also really appropriate for now called the End of the Year Astrology web class. And if you go there, you can just register. This is a great way for you to understand these upcoming shifts. Now, again, this Mercury retrograde already stopped, but we have the Mars combustion until November. We have Jupiter has been retrograde in Capricorn, but then it goes back into Aquarius in November. What that means, that Jupiter is in Capricorn now, then it goes back into Aquarius, that cycle. The Mars combustion again until November 21st. Also, there's a big solar eclipse coming in Scorpio, December 4th, Ashwini Nakshatra, the same day really that Mars goes into Scorpio as well. So we'll have Mars and Ketu in Scorpio as well. So all of this is upcoming. And so this is all available as well. So go ahead and avail yourself of that. It's free. And so I hope you're able to do that. So where we're at now is this full moon that's coming October 20th. And that October 20th full moon is going to be a time where the sun in Libra is opposed by the moon in Aries. So, of course, this brings into play the sort of dynamic between the sun and the moon, of course, which are two opposing forces, light forces, but also the qualities of Libra and Aries. And we really see a strong relationship dynamic here, particularly with the sun being in its debilitated sign in Libra and the moon being opposite that. So when the sun is debilitated in Libra, it's because the sun is the part of us that wants to shine, that has all the power. And that power should be self-contained. It should be, integrated, not given to another, right? The sun is the part that we want to act on first. So in a very simple way, when people assert something like, well, you can't have a healthy relationship with others until you have a healthy relationship with yourself, quote, they're really talking about the sun. Healthy relationship with yourself literally means where you're empowered through your solar nature in many ways. It gives healthy boundaries. It shows your individuality and your individual purpose. Those things that you're not willing to compromise on. And until you know what they are, you can't really have a good relationship. Because then you're going to just be looking for connection to someone else and looking for someone else to have the connection that you lack yourself. And thinking, okay, if I have a connection with this person, then that's my purpose. But that's not beneficial for the sun part of you. So the sun is in the debilitated sign in Libra because Libra is the sign where we try to accommodate others. where we try to make others happy, where we want to do that, where we're just as aware of another person's needs and wishes as much as our own. And we're willing to compromise, and we want to compromise with them to form an agreement to make them happy, where their happiness is just as important as our happiness. So you might say, well, what's wrong? Why can't the sun do that? Because other planets do that. Everything is not the same. All of your energy is not the same. For example, one of the things that drives Libra, because it's ruled by Venus, is wanting to be happy in the moment. So the reason the sun is debilitated in Libra is because Libra, when planets are in Libra, they want to be happy in the moment, happy in the moment. And that happiness in the moment is kind of like the engine that drives our compromises. The reason you compromise on things where you should have a boundary and where you shouldn't compromise is because in the moment, it's always easier to compromise. The fast track to happiness in the moment is to just do whatever anybody tells you to do. And you'll be happy in the moment. Not in the long term, but in the moment. But what happens is over time, we make all these compromises so we can be happy in the moment, Venus, Libra kind of stuff. But over time, we're selling our principles short. Principles are more related to Mars and defending principles. Our purpose and vision, which is the sun. Principles are also related to Jupiter. Jupiter actually defines the principles. Mars defends them. And the sun gives the vision around which the principles align. And many times, often, if not most of the time, our principles will tend to undercut our momentary happiness. For example, if I want to be happy as I can be in the moment right now, something sensual is easy, right? I could sit there and just eat a lot of sweet food or junk food or something. In the moment, I'm going to be happy. But I also know over time, it's undermining my principles. So this is always the kind of trade-off that happens with certain planetary forces. With Libra, it tends to undermine particularly the sun and Jupiter. Those two, Mars as well, although it's more neutral with Mars, but definitely the sun and Jupiter. So with the sun in the debilitated sign of Libra, what happens is suddenly that vision and purpose that we felt even just a couple months ago when the sun was going through Leo, well, now it's like, who knows? I don't know. I want to make sure you're okay with me being powerful. It's not going to offend you, is it? That's the kind of quality of the sun in Libra. It's not going to upset you if I'm powerful. Well, it actually does kind of upset people. Go ahead and start to become more powerful and see what people around you do. Watch what they do. Oh, come on, you're not that. Come on. They'll try to cut you down to size. They'll try to keep you in that sort of way. Not necessarily because they don't like you, but because they're used to seeing you a certain way. And when you start getting all big, they're going to start to try to bring you down a little bit so you don't get disappointed or whatever it might be. Or they might just get jealous, all kinds of stuff. And so the sun in Libra is very much at that place where we tend to lose our vision a little bit. That's why it's debilitated in Libra. And why Saturn is exalted there, because Saturn is about being humble, about working hard, and that relationship with other people actually elevates Saturn energy. So we're not just isolated in our upset anger, our upset bitterness and depression. No, we reach out to other people. We become of service. So Saturn is exalted in Libra and the sun is debilitated. So again, we're at this point in the year where we have the sun passing through these darkened states. And in fact, when the moon comes around in a couple weeks and we have both the sun and the moon, both very dark and in their places of debilitation, that's when we have the festival of Diwali. You know, Diwali corresponds with that time of the year when both the sun and the moon are very weak. So we intentionally bring the light. I'm teaching a course on this, on these Indian holidays. If you're interested in that, there's you could just go. I'll give the website here. A lot of people have asked. It's the astrology of stories.com, and it's where I'm going to be. Let me do that again. I think, there might have been a. Yeah, it's. I'll just copy this. But anyway, and so now is a big time of showing how Indian celebrations and festivals correspond with the time of the year and the astrology. So again, you should understand none of that is random. And especially the Indian, cultural, calendar of celebrations is definitely a cosmological calendar of the year. One of the biggest problems now is we live out of alignment with the cosmology. We just live in a Gregorian calendar, solar-based calendar, which has no connection to the moon, to lunar phases. And in that upcoming course that I'm teaching, I'm going to be explaining about all of the, the Indian, the calendar, the Indian seasons, how it corresponds with all of these different celebrations. And I'll be joined by Dr. Malini Iyer, who is an astrologer and grew up in India, going to be really breaking out all of the important celebrations. And in fact, this is a screenshot from the manual. You can see we're going to talk about the calendar, the years. We're going to have these infographics for every celebration. We're going to look and see where the sun and the moon are and all of that. So this stuff is very important to understand, very important to know. So aside from that, this time of year and this full moon is bringing into contrast the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. Okay, so when the moon is opposite here, the moon is reflecting back now in Aries maybe a healthier sense of independence, you would say, because the sun in Libra is where we're feeling, again, like our confidence and our willingness to assert is lower. And so the moon in Aries is much more fiery. But what it tends to be is frustrated. And the frustration that comes from selling our independence and our vision sort of down the drain. 1 second. And people who have like when the sun is in Libra, literally, when someone has the sun in Libra, often they have these confidence issues. Then they wind up getting into power struggles with people because they feel like people are controlling them or taking away their light or not respecting them enough. But again, what winds up happening, it's not that others aren't respecting you or aren't respecting them. It's that you are not respecting yourself enough. You're thinking, oh, this other person is where my confidence is going to come, where my vision is going to come. And so, again, let's say that you had that. Then you're the one giving away your power. You're the one giving away your power and trading your power for some connection that you think is going to work out. And so often what happens when the sun is in Libra, the person can be very kind of phony or do things, again, where they make agreements that aren't reliable. And then they're like, well, I tried to make him happy. I tried to make you happy, but nothing I do makes you happy. So you're such a mean person. And they make all these compromises and they regret all these compromises. And then at the end, after making all of those compromises and trade-offs, they blame the other person as if the other person was doing something to them the whole time. When again, what was happening is the person wasn't honoring their own power. I'm mentioning this because This is why Aries is the shadow side of Libra. The shadow side. We always hear now so much about the shadow, the shadow, the shadow. I taught a whole course on shadows and blind spots a couple months ago. And one of the easiest ways to see a shadow is through an opposition. So the shadow side of Libra is the frustration expressed in Aries. That's the shadow side of Libra. Oh yeah, let's get along. I'm making, compromises. I have agreements. People like me. And then all we're doing is just also creating frustration because we're not strong enough to assert and to say no, I don't want to do that. Why? Because when you say no, you break connection. And Libra wants connection. And again, the shallow side of Libra is everybody likes me. Everybody likes me. I can do all kinds of things to have people like me. See how nice I am? See how everybody likes me? Yeah. It's easy to get everybody to like you. Just, again, say yes to everything. But then you're also going to wind up resenting everybody and thinking that everybody is abusing you and mistreating you because of all of your compromises, because of all of the compromises you've put out there. And why did you do it? Because you wanted the connection. It was still all for you. You see, this is the shadow again. Libra tends to can have this kind of martyr complex very easily. Oh, I'm always the one compromising. I'm always the one doing it. Yeah, because you want the connection. It's just as selfish. It's no less selfish if you're doing all this stuff so that you get what you want, which is the connection. The connection to the power that you're looking for. That's why you compromise. But then when it doesn't work, you get furious. All the compromises I made, and you didn't, and you never respected me. No, you didn't respect yourself. And that was always the case. And by the way, even in all of these kinds of situations, as much as that stuff happens, when you do that, it doesn't matter even how much respect the other person gives you. Because you're the one coming from the place where you're disrespecting yourself. If you already disrespect yourself so much that you're compromising and making all these loose agreements, it doesn't matter what the other person does. They can respect you more than you respect yourself, and you'll still think they're not respecting you. You'll still get frustrated and angry, which is the Mars backlash. You'll still get frustrated and angry and thinking they don't respect you. Because you're the one not respecting yourself. Even if they already respect you more than you respect yourself, it won't look like that to you because you're still always wanting more connection, because you're in it for you and in it for your connection. You're not in it for them and trying to make them happy. You're trying to make you happy. Now, again, this is an extreme. And all relationships go back and forth, like in romantic relationships or even friendships. I'm talking about extremes here now. So things are shades of gray, but we've all done this before. It's not like you're doing it. We all do this at times. Because we all want the connection. We want the connection and we want people that we like to like us. So we'll try more. We all do it. This is just the process of what happens, right? And again, I'm talking about it now in great detail because this is where we have the planets now. This is where they're sitting. We have the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. So it's blowing up this axis of the Libra-Aries axis, and it's the sun in Libra. Again, it's opposite if it's the moon, if it's the sun. If it's the moon in Libra and the sun in Aries, it's very different because now we have an exalted Aries. Now we have an exalted sun. So it's not the same thing then. Then the sun is so roaring and powerful that we're too much about ourselves. In this case, it's the opposite, where we could be feeling that the pain of our flimsy agreements. So here's what you want to be looking at. Look at those agreements where you didn't honor your boundaries and you didn't really check in with what you want for yourself, where you're giving away your power in order to have connection. And those things, Again, we see a lot of it in romantic relationships, but it can be in business partnerships and friendships. This full moon in Aries is going to bring out the frustration around that kind of thing. You're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel like, again, aggrieved, and there's a high potential for, again, blaming those who you think haven't been treating you well, and it's everyone else's fault. Instead of doing that, introspect about those agreements and be honest with yourself about it. And it's hard to do, sort of. It's not that hard to do. It's painful to do it. That's why we don't do it. But you have to understand, no one, it's as simple as it gets. No one can disrespect you. No one. They can't. You must give them permission. And you must first disrespect yourself, or be lacking respect for yourself or understanding of yourself. Only then is it even possible for someone to say something to you that you think is going to be, that's really going to land. Now, it's not that people can't try, but again, there are people who try to disrespect me all the time. And I'm not saying that people don't do it, that they don't act disrespectfully, but I'm saying no one can make you feel disrespected or unappreciated, because that comes from within. You know, I have a lot of people that are like that with me at times about teachings or this kind of thing, and they get personal or whatever. To be honest, I don't like it, but it never affects me. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect anything I do. And by the way, you should understand something. This is very important. And this is a principle of yoga. One of the biggest things of yoga is beyond blame or praise. So listen to this now. If you're looking for other people's approval and their respect and their appreciation, it means that you're doing things to get their approval. You're not doing things because of a higher vision or purpose. And again, it's the same principle of the sun and Libra. If you're doing things to get people to like you and for their approval, then you're looking for praise. And again, even if they praise you, then you'll just be getting what you think you deserve. But then in times when you don't get it, you'll feel like a victim. I did this thing to get your praise and you didn't give it to me. Look at how mean you are. That's the wrong road. That's not your soul. That's pure ego. Pure ego. And again, because we do so much of that, we think, but that's just life. It's not just life. It's life through the ego. So the thing I was saying before, though, is that even though I know there are people, let's say, who disrespect me or act disrespectfully or don't appreciate or attack me, even if that might happen, it doesn't change anything I do, because that's the nature of the sun, actually. The sun is like, I'm not doing this so I can be rewarded. I'm not doing this to be appreciated. Again, one of the best examples that I use is a parent and a child. Parents don't do all they do for their child so that the child will appreciate it. In fact, children probably don't appreciate their parents more than any other relationship in the world. Parents don't do it so that the child will appreciate it. They do it because they love the child. That's it. That's why. It's like, this is the thing. This is what they do. This is why they do it. Because their heart is overflowing with love for the child, and that's they can't do enough. So that's supposed to be the motivation of your life. That's supposed to be the sun. That's why the sun in Leo is generous. And this is why when our heart isn't overflowing with light and love and generosity, and instead it's in this transactional kind of thing, then all of our motives get corrupted. Because now we're doing things only if I get something back. Right? It's, I'll do it, but if you don't appreciate it, then I won't do it. Well, then it's all about your ego. It's not even about any kind of vision. It's not about any kind of love. It's not about anything. So if someone criticizes the way you are as a parent, if your child gets mad at you the way you're parenting them, you're going to stop doing it? You're going to stop trying to do your best? Of course not. So that's the best way to look at it. That's why the sun and the moon are the sovereigns. They're like the parents that sacrifice. This is what sattvic guna is. This is what sattva is. And by the way, it's not appropriate for everything we do. But when we're talking about the sun and the moon, and we're talking about full moons or whatnot, or we're assessing dignities, and especially now because the sun and the moon are passing through these darkened states, it's important to understand these sattvic qualities of the luminaries. The sun and the moon are the biggest, brightest, powerful thing. They're the reason there's life on Earth. So again, like I said, at this time of year, we have these two very important celebrations that that are going on now. We just had the Navratri, which started on the new moon, which is the full moon of the Divine Mother, or I'm sorry, which was the 10-day celebration of the Divine Mother, the 9 days, and then the 10th victory. And then and then the next month is Diwali, which is the festival of light. And that'll happen in a couple weeks when the moon comes around here and joins the sun. That's when we have the Diwali celebration, because then both the sun and the moon are close to being debilitated. So this is why this full moon here is so important, because this is the full moon that's right in between these two very important months in the Indian calendar. So as you remember, the beginning of the last new moon was when we did Navratri, the Divine Mother. The next new moon is Diwali, the celebration of light, where we welcome Lord Rama, the king, back from exile. And as I said, this entire, this course that I'm teaching on the astrology of the myths and cosmology, I explain this because you'll see how the whole story of the Ramayana, and how Lord Rama, who was the king, was kicked off the throne, and his wife was tormented, both the sun and the moon. The sun is Rama, the moon is Sita, his wife. Both the sun and the moon are debilitated at this time. So that entire story talks about it. And they're tormented by Ravana, who is actually related to Shiva and also to Saturn. He was a great yogi. And he's rescued by Hanuman, who is an incarnation of Mars. And all of this cosmology plays out in this way because, and it's shown with the astrology. And what we're going to do in that course, in this course I was talking about, is we're going to go over like the astrology of all of that. Because literally with the nakshatras, with the exaltation and the debilitation points, like I'm talking about, you see the sun is Saturn is exalted there. Saturn is Ravana. The moon is debilitated. The moon is Rama, who is the king, who is weak. So all of the astrology, even at that time, is being brought to bear in that festival. And so again, it's this is what that course is on. It's not just let's tell stories. It's how the stories are a living embodiment of the astrology, of the cosmology. This is why all of those holy days fall on new moons and full moons, or different tithis. Ganesh Chaturthi on the 4th tithi. There's a reason for that. Also at that time, Guru Purnima, full moon of the Guru. There's a very good reason why it's that time of the year, not every other full moon. So it's crucial to really understand that, and understanding it really helps you understand astrology much better and also understand the stories much better. And so it's, I try to bring a little more depth into some of these updates, because there's full moon updates all over the place now. There's a lot of them. And so you want to see these things as a sort of progression beyond just the personal thing, which I've already been talking about. The debilitated sun and the moon in Aries can really be bringing up a lot of the frustrations that you might be having around these compromises that you've made. But if you want to be honest about these compromises that you've made, first you need to be honest about your motivations and your desires. One second. And realize that the part of you that is feeling frustrated, feeling unappreciated, and feeling attacked and put upon is really, in many ways, your own doing. You've allowed it. And again, what happens when you have good boundaries? I mean, it certainly happens with me when people, like in romantic relationships or friendships or whatever, but when someone gets close to a boundary with me or something that feels disrespectful, or, I mean, and obviously it happens, it always happens, but I very much don't take it personally. I mean, literally don't take it personally, especially on a friendship kind of nature, because I assume, first of all, that there's a misunderstanding, that they have expectations that are out of alignment with what I want to do, right? And again, there's no reason to get upset about it. There's a misalignment, and it can happen very easily. We project onto the other person something, like people who, as I'm an astrologer, I have friends who maybe want to say, hey, I wonder if you can look at my chart for this, or some people ask me all the time, too much, to be honest with you. And I could get offended by it, like, well, what, do you expect me to work for free, or get all like angry about it? No, I don't. I don't assume that people are trying to take advantage of me. I just would say something like, well, that's a lot involved with that. So, I'll just literally say I'm not doing readings at the moment or anything like that. And, just don't worry about it. I'll kind of give a little thing, kind of deflect it, and not take it personally, not get offended, not look for the insult. Because see, what happens is when we're doing this, it's very easy for people to get offended very easily by things that are just misunderstandings. And you can establish a boundary very easily, only if you're already established in your own power. I already know that no matter what, I'm not going to be talked into doing anything I don't want to do. I already know what the boundaries are. I already know what they are. So if someone says, could you do this? And sometimes it has to do even with students or people that are closer than just acquaintances or partnerships or relationships. Again, it could be a problem sometime in relationships where a partner might ask me to want to do something and I don't want to do it. And I'm very clear I don't want to do it. I'm also very clear that I'm not angry about it. But even if you say no, then you see them get angry. And it's like, you shouldn't be getting angry about this. I can have a boundary. I can say no. I need to be able to say no also. And if you have such a problem with me saying no, I have a problem with that. I have more of a problem with you getting angry at me because of something that I don't want to do. Because you see, I trust myself enough to know that my no is real. I don't want to be convinced. Don't try to talk me into it. No means no. And your no also means no to me. I'll also give you the same respect. I'm not going to assume anything. And if I ask something or, I don't know, encroach on something and you say yes, I'm going to assume that your yes is credible. So if you say yes to something and then blame me for your yes, I'm not going to be responsible for that. That's going to be on you. So again, I'm very intentional about this. And this is why I'm saying these things, is because your yes also is your responsibility. No one can force you to do that. And if they do, they're breaking the law. So with me, it's very clear. And by the way, I've also learned, besides, I'm not even looking to get yeses from people. I'm looking to get a credible yes. If I ask something of someone and they say yes, and their yes is like, okay, right away I'm going, wait a minute, doesn't sound like you're okay. What's going on? I don't want that yes, because I know what happens when you accept that yes. That yes, you're going to have to deal with the part that they're not telling you at some point or another. Maybe when you're younger, you don't realize it and you think, well, you said yes, so it ain't worth it. Trust me. By the way, if you're younger and you're accepting these flimsy yeses, you realize soon enough that it ain't worth it. Even though they said yes, and you could come back and win the argument later, it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. It's either a credible yes, or to me, it's no. And if I feel like it, if it's important enough, I'll say, Well, that doesn't sound. Are you sure? I want to make sure that you are up for this. Whatever it might be. And if not, let's talk about it. Let's get through it. Let's work it out. And then we get down to it, and then we find out what was going on, and then maybe it is a clear no. But sometimes people just need a little encouragement, and they just need you to help them work through what they're uncertain about, and then they get confident about it, and then the yes becomes confident. And then I'm like, okay, now I trust you. Now I'm there. With me, a lot of this has to do with like business partnerships, business agreements, and whatnot. And people are confused. And like I said earlier in the conversation, people are trying to say yes, maybe just because they want to have a connection or they want to do this. And then they'll think, okay. But I'm like, well, wait. I want to make sure that it is credible, because I don't want to get down the road with someone and realize that their yes was never really that reliable. And then I have to step in and say no, because that's usually what happens. I don't usually ask anything of people unless it's important. And if I'm willing to be there with it, the yes, it's like a cooperative thing. Again, like a relationship, or in many ways now, it's like a business relationship, like with students and inviting people to come in and do something more. I don't invite everyone to do it because I know it's risky. So I make sure to try to suss all that out to make sure that everybody's on board. Because so again, at some point, as you get more and more confident in your yes, and you're so confident in your yes that you're going to bring others on and invite them in, you start to become more aware of other people's flimsy yes, where they're really saying, oh, I don't know, but maybe I'll try. Well, that might work for something, but if it's important enough, you don't want that yes. You don't want it. You want the absolute clear one, because you'll pay for it later. And I could run that example in a lot of ways. Relationships is a big one. Always on the lookout for those flimsy yeses. Yeah, okay. And you can tell the person's not really checked in. It'll come back to get you. So these are big issues right now. Katie said, really looking forward to the weekend and mythology celebrations this weekend. It's going to be great. I'm really surprised more people haven't signed up for it, to be honest with you. I thought a lot more people would. Usually I have way more than 100. This time it's much less. I'm really kind of shocked, frankly, a little disappointed as well, because I thought more people would really see the value in this. Again, this is a screenshot from, people are going to get all these infographics and really to bring together the cosmology of the sky, the astrology, the calendar, the lunar phases, the stories, the imagery, the spirituality of India. It's a very unique, beautiful, and powerful way to bring this stuff together. And I really thought people would respond more. Maybe the rest of this week, people will jump on it a little bit more now that the planets are moving forward again. But I'm a little surprised, frankly, because I think it's one of the most important classes that I've done, especially to help to deepen people's understanding of the astrology, of the cosmology, of these stories and these great myths. This mythological tradition of India, and especially as it's part of this entire cosmological framework and matrix, is one of the most, important, just a sort of godsend that we have, that we can actually see even in the stories and the planets, the specifics of it. The planets are like the gods, and they get in these situations, and these leelas and these stories happen. It's just a total, a beautiful way. And the stories are beautiful themselves, whether you ever look at anything deeper, but to then take the astrology into it and see that it's all the cosmology behind it, that the stories are actually telling the story of the sky and the cosmos this way. So I hope more people understand the value in this. But I want to get into the nakshatras here, because this full moon is also in Ashwini Nakshatra. And that Ashwini is very much about new beginnings, about moving very quickly into something. One second. So I'd be drinking so much. It's hot here in San Diego. I played a lot of tennis this morning. I love it, but it makes me thirsty. So that full moon in Ashwini is very much about that new energy. It's that first section of the zodiac. We just had the end. In fact, right now, as I'm doing this on the 19th, the moon is at the last degrees. It's in Pisces, in those last degrees of Pisces related to the shepherd, and Pisces is very kind of dreamy and kind of letting go, and that kind of in between life state, even like right before we're born. Think of that state when the soul is still like in another form, or even like in the womb, like in the gestation, and then boom, we're born and it pops out. And that's Aries, and that's Ashwini, the first nakshatra here. So this first nakshatra, very much about that sort of hot, excited quest for life, right? It's two horses. And, just like they used to have the two horses would pull like chariot or pull something going forward, they would take the two horses and they would yoke them together. They put something that joins them so that they are pulling in the same direction. Because you could also have the two horses running in two different directions if they're not yoked together. They could be pulling and you're going all over the place. You're going nowhere. So this is one of the real symbols that I use for Ashwini, is that it's that energy that's so full of forward velocity, at least potentially, but it can also be very scattered energy if it's not properly channeled. Again, you even look at horses, even in like horse races and stuff, they kind of, they put blinders on them so that they can't see all over the place, because, a horse is a wild animal. It might want to run somewhere else. They get spooked by other horses or whatever. And the horse is also a symbol of prana and of the breath. And this is why in yoga, it says that you have to tame the breath, just like you have to tame a horse. They actually use the same symbols. I don't remember, one of the Upanishads, I think, where they talk about you actually ride the breath like you ride a horse. You have to tame the breath instead of just breathing chaotically. This is what pranayama is. Pranayama. Yama means to restrain, but it's not to restrain in a way to hold it back. It's to restrain to contain it and concentrate it properly. Otherwise, the breath and the mind go crazy. And by the way, this is opposite the nakshatra of Swati, which is related to Hanuman, and it's also related to the breath. But Hanuman was the general of the army of the monkeys. So instead of the mind being like a bunch of drunk monkeys running around, the power of Swati, the opposite nakshatra, is to concentrate the prana in a powerful way. That's what Swati is about, and it's what Ashwini is about. So this is why one of the best things in Ashwini is yoga. Again, to yoke, just like yoking two horses together, you yoke the breath and the mind. Because whether you know it or not, your mind follows your breath. And if you want to change your mind, you can change your breath immediately. If you're feeling angry anytime, if you just change your breathing, your anger will subside. It's impossible. You can't stay angry and breathe deep and whatnot. You can't. Your breath actually determines your mental state. If you don't believe me, try it. Next time you get angry and frustrated about something and you want to do this kind of thing, just, again, that's why I say take a few deep breaths. Like it's some kind of, it is magic, because you can't stay furious and angry and breathe deep and have your breath go down and touch the center. It's not possible. So this is why pranayama is so important. In Ashwini, you'll often see that people have a real connection to yoga. And even what you would call the yogas like Ayurveda and Jyotish and things like that. They're all different vidyas, but certainly that connection to taming the breath, taming is like a horse. You think of the mind like a wild horse that's out of control. In fact, it's like two of them. And one horse is pulling you here, one's pulling you there. Think of the nature of your mind if you ever just looked at it. Your mind is just insane. It's just a jumble of insanity. Just jumps from one thing to the next. One emotion drives one thought, then another one, and then something else flies. It's just random, utter chaos. Everyone's mind is like that. It's undisciplined chaos. And so, again, this is the first nakshatra at the beginning of the zodiac, like the beginning of life. So it's like all this enthusiasm and passion. So realize that this is a full moon. It's not the sun. It's the mind is in Ashwini. So again, in the context of what I'm talking about now with the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries, where it's this emotional, fiery quality that could be angry and frustrated and aggrieved and upset, instead of getting like that over anything, the real power of this full moon in Ashwini is to bring out the deeper nature of yoga, of penetrating into the cosmic truth, not the temporary struggle of, what someone did or some kind of drama. This could be a full moon of a lot of drama to make it simple. I try to keep things on that elevated plane and try to explain the energy without getting into it's going to be bad, which I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but this could be a time where you're ready to, kick ass and take names over the stuff that you think people have been doing to you and you're tired of it and you're ready to get fired up at them about it. Moon in Aries is no joke, man. Aries is like, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready for combat. And the moon is like, this is how I feel. And that's it. I feel frustrated. I feel angry. And guess who's to blame? You. And we're just like totally disowning. This is why I talked about all this other stuff before. I talked about before all of that stuff comes up and before you're like ready to just charge in there like two wild horses, galloping toward your redemption at what everybody did to you. That's why I talked about all that stuff before, because it's like, look at the nature of all of your compromises first. Look at the nature of your agreements. And again, this is also an important reminder that the full moon, all the full moons are really expressions and extensions of where the sun is, because it's a halfway point in the sun cycle. So wherever the moon is opposing, this is really where the nexus of power is. The nexus of power is really, the nexus of power is really here with the sun. And the moon is a response to that. So the sun is really where the power is being concentrated now. And so this full moon is going to be in this opposite to where the sun is. So that's pretty much what I had to say about this. And take a drink. If people had a few questions, not about your chart, but about any of this stuff or a few other things, you could maybe put in a question and I'll see if I feel like answering it. See, that's my boundaries. I'm not trying to do things to make people like me. You might have noticed. I should probably do a little more. See, that's what I've had to learn in my life, to be honest with you. So, all right. Well, that's good. We'll leave it at that. And this will just be well, someone did. Here's a good question. How is this? If the again, it's you say how's it affected? Mars is combust, so yeah. So given the fact that Mars is also combust right now, and it's still very combust, it's less than 4 degrees combust. So Mars is still very much behind the sun, and so Mars is definitely also very hot, and we're feeling that aggrieved quality, right? We're feeling that nature of being aggrieved. So yes, this full moon in Aries is definitely bringing up, it's going to be operating through the sanction of Mars. So thanks, Chelsea, for asking that. Yeah. So we're dealing with that combust Mars. And like I said before, we have this in fact, people should check this out. Again, I put it here again. Let me just put this again, this end of the year astrology. You see it scrolling there. Look, you should really go and check this out because oops, I put a mistake in there. I always screw something up. I messed up the link again. Here's the link. Look, one of the problems that we have with astrology is we have this short attention span. Like, oh, he said that last week. I talked about the Mars. This Mars combustion is for months, okay? And it's not just like something that happened a couple days ago. This has been this goes on for like 3 or 4 months, and it's powerful. So we're in this state now. And so in this class, I talk about all of these shifts, and even though Mercury has gone direct now, I talked about the whole cycle of Jupiter going back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius. I also talked about this Mars combustion and also these upcoming eclipses and whatnot. So this these cycles are not just like, oh, I got my update today. These things are long term. We've been dealing, for example, with this combustion of Mars, with again Jupiter going back into Capricorn, Saturn and Jupiter retrograde. This has been going on for months. So again, you might hear an astrological update, excuse me, and then like, oh, okay, I heard an update that Saturn is retrograde. Okay, now I hear an update that says it's the full moon. Now, but Saturn's retrograde for 5 months. It happens. It's like these are long-term cycles that are cumulative. These things are always ongoing. So in this free class here with this end of the year, I'm talking about these long-term things that have been going. Someone, of course, couldn't wait to see. This is what happens. People say Mercury is no longer retrograde because they see on this screenshot it says Mercury retrograde. People can't wait to say, oh, what about that? Yes. But what it talks about is what that cycle was that you just lived through. Mercury just turned direct yesterday. And I also talk about the longer cycle, the longer context of the fact that Mercury was in Virgo and Libra for 3 months. So again, it talks about it's an entire shift. It's not just one thing. So I'd make these bullet points to give people an idea of what's in the class, but then I start talking about this, and I'm literally just talking about the most important astrological indicators that are happening for the rest of the year that started like in September. Yeah, it was like that began like in the end of August and September to like the end of the year. So again, that's like a 4-month chunk of time, which is really kind of how we're living most of our influences. Throughout the year, we have these 3-4 month cycles of where big things shift or whatever. So anyway, I hope you look at that because it's quite important and it's free. And so a few other things. So yeah, that's fine. We'll just leave it at that. And I appreciate people showing up. And we'll be in touch. I'm going to do a few updates here very soon, especially about the Saturn and the Jupiter. The other thing I wanted to say, and it came into my head and then I kept talking, but one of the really good things to be doing with this Mars combust is physical activity. You know, I've definitely felt a lot of, doing a lot of physical activity helps to disperse a lot of that Mars energy with the combustion. And again, if it's yoga or dance or something, it doesn't have to be sports or whatever. It doesn't have to be something competitive. It could be though, but to just, get that physical energy out, because Mars is behind the sun and it's getting purified. And it's nothing wrong with the combustion. You just need to be careful not to take it out on people and get charged up and ready to fight, right? Instead, get out there and fight it out on the tennis court or on the, take a long bike ride, or, get out there and physically, climb a real mountain, take on a real challenge. Because again, that's what Mars is really trying to do, is take on challenges. And so it feels very invigorated. This is why combust planets are often very invigorated. We just need to not have them be detrimental, but they get very activated because of the sun. The sun activates everything. So feeling that that invigoration of physicality and even like discipline. I've been much more disciplined as well around things, because that's what Mars is about. I'm going to concentrate on this thing and that thing and make myself strong. Again, that's what Mars does. And so there's a real promise in that, in what makes us strong, right? Am I really strong when I'm blaming everybody for my stuff and whining like a big baby? Because that's also a big part of Mars. Mars is also kind of like the big baby of the zodiac. So it comes right after the moon. I mean, what do babies do when they come into the world? You start crying, having tantrums. This is all Mars behavior, right? So we need to transform that kind of simplistic fury into discipline, or into simplistic, like, me out there not mindlessly, but, running around on the tennis court, sweating for 2.5 hours, yelling at myself and trying to be a better tennis player. It's better than coming here and yelling at everybody in my life, get it out of my system. So anyway, folks, I hope this was helpful for you, and go ahead and share it with others. Like and subscribe to the channel and all that stuff, which I always forget to say, but it's sitting there. So hopefully you saw it.